I'm Deidre Malone, and welcome to Dialogue with Deidre. I am so glad that you're with us this afternoon. I have a very special guest in the studio. And if you're not following us, I want to ask you to follow us on YouTube and our social media channels, because that's the only way you're going to know what's going on with Dialogue with Deidre. But our special guest in the studio today is Broderick Johnson. How many Johnsons do we know? This is a very special Johnson, though. Mr. Broderick Johnson is with Comcast.
Yes.
Broderick, how long have you been with Comcast?
A little over 4 years.
4 years? Yes. And what role do you play there?
So I have a long title.
I know you do.
Right. So, but I'm Executive Vice President for Public Policy, so I oversee our public policy work. And then I'm also the Executive Vice President for Digital Opportunity.
Wow. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. Okay. But let me just say, your background is very impressive. I mean, you've worked with some pretty cool presidents. Two of them that I really like.
Oh, yes, yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Extraordinary. You know, I grew up in Baltimore, and you know, my parents had big dreams, but I'm not sure they ever imagined that their son would go to work for two presidents. And I was fortunate enough, after years on the Hill and in private law practice, to get picked up by the Clinton administration. And I served for President Clinton for 2 years, including through his impeachment. So I've seen a lot of political drama. Yep. And then I was fortunate enough a few years later to meet this state senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, as he was thinking of running for the U.S. Senate. And that was sort of the beginning of an incredible run working for him, which I kind of still do. Yeah. But I worked on his campaigns and then also in his White House for the last 3 years of his second term. So I've worked for two presidents.
Well, let me just say I have a story about both.
Okay.
The first, I'll say that I met President Clinton, and I have one of those pictures like Harold Ford Jr. standing on one side and President Clinton's on the other side, and I'm grinning and I'm holding President Clinton's hand. And then my President Obama story is I've not met him, but I did meet Michelle. Okay. My firm represented the Church of God in Christ denomination, and when Bishop G. Patterson passed, Michelle came down to the service, and also President Clinton.
Okay.
And so they were both here, and I had a chance to meet her, not President Obama, but at least the First Lady. She was about to be the First Lady.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Comcast and Comcast's commitment. You've been leading Comcast's effort around digital equity nationwide. Yeah. What does closing the digital divide mean to Comcast?
Well, first, you know, the digital divide, for me, goes back to the Clinton days. President Clinton really started addressing the digital divide in his second term, so around 96, 97, 98. And I went back, you know, recently and looked at some of the things he was saying about the digital divide and closing it back then. Yeah. And he talked about our audacious goal being a computer in every classroom as a way to close the digital divide. Now look at where we are. It's about having multiple devices, computers, phones, not in just classrooms, but in people's homes. And so the digital divide has become a much more complicated set of issues, though. I'm so happy and proud to have joined Comcast to be able to lead this work, because Comcast wasn't new to this discussion about the digital divide, but also a company committed to providing the resources. So that's why I was so glad to join the company, because of that commitment. Closing the digital divide is just right at the core of Comcast values.
And in an area like Memphis, where poverty is so high, I know Comcast has been committed to really bridging that digital divide. I remember during COVID when it hit, and a lot of the school systems, you know, were not equipped, right? With computers, but I know that Comcast stepped up and supported.
Yeah, absolutely, and it through helping with, you know, with the education system, the needs of children, right? In that really tenuous period. We know our kids in our communities fall behind for a variety of reasons, none of which are excusable. But having that technology divide in the midst of the pandemic was such a danger, and it still is, to a lot of kids' prosperity and their families being able to achieve. But Comcast has been there, whether it's working with the schools or working with the churches or working with community-based organizations. And it's just, again, it's so gratifying because it's not something that just came lately. It's been there for a long time, and we hyped our investments during the pandemic, without question.
Absolutely. I think about during that time where a lot of families didn't have access to the internet and would have to, maybe sometimes go to their cars, right?
Right.
Outside of a McDonald's or some other free access place to get those services so our children could do their homework. Yeah. But Comcast has always stepped up.
Well, so our lift zones, and we'll talk about that during this conversation, but we started our lift zones program in the midst of the beginning of the pandemic and have continued to invest throughout. And lift zones, by the way, are community-based centers where there's free Wi-Fi access and computers and lots of other things to make sure that kids and families have access. But it was during that period that we started what has now become 9 lift zones here in Memphis. Yeah. We're going to be announcing ribbon cutting for the 9th one today. But that's about the commitment, knowing that in many households, the access either wasn't there or people hadn't signed on or they didn't have equipment and they didn't know how to use it. So that's what it's all about.
And Comcast has stepped up, I know, like with Girls Inc. and the Boys and Girls Club, their lift zones here in Memphis.
That's right.
And I know you're announcing one today at a very special church in our community. Yeah. You want to go ahead and announce that?
Oh, there's so many things about that, that are personal for me. In that it's at St. Augustine's, Roman Catholic Church. Yes. I'm a lifelong Catholic. My church in D.C. is St. Augustine's Roman Catholic Church.
Stop.
It is the oldest African-American Catholic church in Washington, D.C. So that makes it even more special for me. But throughout the time I've been at Comcast, I've been committed to this idea that churches, houses of worship, are critical places to be able to expand people's access, use of, training around the internet. And so at St. Augustine's, where I'm sure the level of trust is as high as it gets, we will be launching this new lift zone, the 9th lift zone in this community here in Memphis. And it just really fills my heart.
And let me just say, St. Augustine is one of the oldest kind of African-American churches in our community. And a lot of African-American Catholics go there, are very prominent African-Americans.
Sure.
Former mayor of Memphis, A.C. Wharton, and his family are members of St. Augustine. My good friend Jesse Johnson is a member of St. Augustine. And so, but it's such a community-based church and so centrally located. And a beacon of hope for the community.
And 85 years old.
I know.
Right? It was just, all those generations, right? And yet I'm sure during the pandemic, as has happened with just about every house of worship, had to make adjustments to make sure that people could find their way back to services and be able to do it virtually during that time. And for that church to still be, as you said, a beacon of hope, but also stability. And now, as we've gotten on the other side of the pandemic, it's changed the nature of how services are conducted in a lot of churches, and I'm sure that's the case with St. Augustine's, and so that's why it's going to be a lift zone.
I know during that time, specifically the pandemic, a lot of churches were, going virtual.
That's right.
To try and make sure that the community was safe. So this really will just help the community in general. So really excited about this ribbon cutting today.
Because it's beyond just surviving in periods like the pandemic. There's the opportunity to thrive. And what I've learned in our work with churches and other, faith-based institutions is that those that have the technological savvy or the technological resources or vision of the future, not just survive, but that thrive through that period. And as you look to the future, they'll thrive even more. Unfortunately, there were many that just weren't ready.
Yeah. And
that's painful to think about in terms of people who their faith communities mean the world to them for obvious reasons.
So, Broderick, my firm, the Deidre Malone Group, has worked with, my very first client was the National Baptist Convention.
Okay.
Out of Nashville. And from that, my third client was the Church of God in Christ denomination.
Okay.
And so faith-based is just really important to me, specifically in this work. Are there partnerships that Comcast has with the faith-based community around the digital divide?
Sure. And in other cities, we have been really strengthening those partnerships, building new relationships, but strengthening existing partnerships. And so, again, it's been part of my commitment in helping to lead a great team that understands the importance of faith-based communities to go out and do that outreach. Again, because it's not just about people, of course, trusting their churches and their synagogues and their mosques, but also places where they go to get additional resources, to learn, for example, how to use the computer to apply for a job, or how to use the computer for telehealth, or how to use a computer to be able to do online banking. I think about that a lot when I think, well, when's the last time I actually physically went to a bank, right? And I used to do that regularly. For a lot of people, of course, there's a bit of a barrier about who to trust. But if it's through their church or their synagogue or their mosque, the leader of those organizations that helps them understand it's okay. Yeah. You're not going to lose all your money, right? In fact, you'll save time and money and anxiety by being able to just go on your computer or take a picture of that check and just do it online. You're done in 5 minutes.
Well, I got to tell you, the challenge, though, with that is our seniors.
Yes.
And so, but what I do know is Comcast does an excellent job of working with a lot of organizations that educate seniors on that digital divide. Like I know, like here in Memphis, the Memphis Urban League has classes for seniors. And I'm looking online and I'm chuckling because my mom's 83 and she's the Facebook queen. And so she understands technology, but for seniors to go and take classes, supported by Comcast is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and what it does to, certainly to bring them joy, is something I've seen over and over again. There's a senior center in Detroit, for example, that I visited early on, and we did an event there, and with seniors who were taking even virtual dance classes. For example, there was one woman who talked about meeting, a gentleman in his 80s who she began dating because they had met online. It was sort of a safe thing.
I love it.
They were able to do that, but we're working with an organization called OATS, right, which is part of AARP, to focus on seniors and how to help seniors build trust in the internet, but also how to use it. And by the way, you can imagine the intergenerational things that happen there, where it's the teenagers basically helping their grandparents feel comfortable about being online. It's just beautiful.
Well, let me just say, it makes my day to be able to Zoom with my grandkids who are like, they're just in South Haven, but be able to Zoom and say, hey, what you doing? And then they can call me. My 10-year-old granddaughter can FaceTime me. What are you doing, Nanny D? I'm just watching TV. But this technology piece, they learn it at an early age, like 3 and 4. They're swiping on iPads, and it's amazing. So teach your grandparents, kids, how to use this technology.
Yeah, just think of all of the birthday parties, for example, that were done virtually. Yeah. When people, and they learned from that, well, we can do that even more often. It's not just something to do during the pandemic, but you can even have like a family reunion that includes some virtual elements to it. I talk about this, I use this word a lot, joy, right? Because it brings a lot of joy to be able to be online.
It does.
Not as a substitute for interaction, but a lot of times people just can't be in the same place.
But sometimes it's just being able to see somebody you hadn't seen in a minute, see their face through technology, be able to smile and laugh and have a good time. Makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
So beyond connectivity, right? Providing internet access is step one, but what's next for Comcast in terms of helping families?
Well, a lot of times when people talk about the digital divide and what's there, they talk about the lack of access. Yeah. But what we know is that in many, many communities, especially in many cities, access to the internet is not the barrier, right? The infrastructure exists. Companies like Comcast are there to provide affordable, high-speed internet. But for a variety of reasons, people perhaps don't know about it. Yeah. They don't trust company. We know people don't trust the government in many circumstances. Right. But the lack of sort of the training, the digital skills. What happens when I turn it on? Am I going to, give up my privacy and all that? So we've got a lot of work to do around that, and also people having the devices. So we gladly participate in laptop giveaways oftentimes. And then the relevance, helping people understand that having access that you use to the internet and being trained can lead to all sorts of opportunities to do things in your life that just expand the world and maybe even take a little bit of stress out of your life. So that's what we're really focused on now is, okay, access is largely there. Although in rural parts of America, it's still a big challenge. But even there, making sure people understand that adopting the internet is the key, not just pointing out to them that there's access.
I was chuckling. I was watching a commercial the other day, and it was an Xfinity commercial where it was in a rural area, and a woman saw the Xfinity Comcast truck.
In Delaware, I think it is, yes.
And she came up and she rode up and she was like, thank you for coming to the community, right?
Right. Over and over again. That's the case. And but again, we have to make sure people understand that just having access to it is not enough. You got to know how to use it.
Absolutely.
This is where these partnerships matter a lot. Here in Memphis, we've got 25 local organizations we work with to help with the training.
That's absolutely amazing. I want to ask you about small businesses and entrepreneurs too. Mm-hmm. What role can Lift Zones kind of play in helping those small businesses and minority firms in this digital economy?
Yeah, so I would actually point to another very successful effort that we have at Comcast called the RISE program, which has successfully helped small businesses, startup businesses, be able to emerge or grow as a result of the training and the opportunities that they have to become even global by using internet resources. And so we have been very supportive of small businesses, including minority and women-owned businesses, but also businesses started by veterans, as a matter of fact. So it's just a wide range of support that we give.
I think Alpha Omega here in Memphis has a Lift Zone, and that's one of our veteran services programs, and so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've had so many opportunities to be with veterans and to work with veterans-based organizations to help veterans understand the importance of being able to be online. It matters a lot for telehealth-related reasons, but also workforce development, because let's face it, a lot of our veterans are still relatively young, and they have young families. And so them being able, they have earned it, right? And so companies and government needs to do as much as possible to help veterans understand the importance of being online.
So, Broderick, before I ask you like 3 fun questions, because that's how we end the show, what else would you like our viewers to know about Comcast and what's going on in the digital divide?
I guess, again, I would emphasize I had total confidence when I joined Comcast, and it has been borne out through the resources that have been put into the work, that there is no company more committed to closing the digital divide than Comcast, something we have done going back to 2011, for example, with our Internet Essentials program, right? So that commitment has been there, and it will continue. And it's not something about just showing up at an event with a check at a gala and saying we're committed, but actually being there where our employees live and work and are committed to their communities.
Let me just say I was at an event last week, and it was a bunch of teenagers there. And they had written essays and submitted them to Comcast, and they were awarded laptops and backpacks. And, I mean, I saw the hugest smiles because some of them did not have their own laptops. You know, they had devices that were given to them by schools, but now to have your own laptop, it meant the world to them.
So, yes, one of the greatest moments for me was when I went to a Lift Zone in Chicago, and it was in a Hispanic neighborhood, and we gave out Lyft laptops. And this young kid, he must have been about 10, said in Spanish, but someone, either he translated for me, right, because he understood. I didn't quite know what he was saying, but he said in Spanish, "This is the greatest day of my life." And it was like when you get that from a 10-year-old, they really mean it. And I have so many moments like that have happened as a result of me being able to do this work.
Well, it's amazing work. Okay.
3 questions.
3 questions. What's your favorite movie?
Forrest Gump.
Really?
Yes.
I would think it would be something like gangster-esque, like The Godfather, but it's Forrest Gump.
It's Forrest Gump.
I love it.
Yeah, and I love Tom Hanks.
He's wonderful.
And in that movie, it's just, I could watch that over and over and over again.
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food? Remember, you're in Memphis. What's your favorite food? Someone who had ribs today.
Other than when I'm in Memphis.
Okay.
Being from Baltimore, it's crabs.
Oh, good.
Yeah, steamed crabs. Yeah. Absolutely, because it's where the family gathers around a table like this with newspaper.
Yeah.
And we just sit for hours and crack those crabs. Yes.
Favorite vacation spot?
Is that right?
Yeah. What's your favorite vacation?
Oh, my favorite vacation
spot.
spot.
Your favorite vacation spot?
Martha's Vineyard. It's where my family spends a lot of the summer now when we get everybody together, and grandson gets to visit there with us and spend time with us. But our kids come from wherever they are and friends. It's my absolute favorite vacation spot, without a question.
I love it.
Yeah.
Broderick Johnson, thank you for being on Dialogue with Deidre.
Thank you, Deidre.
You can come back anytime.
Love to.
When you're in Memphis.
Yes, please. Have me.
Thank you for watching Dialogue with Deidre. We'll see you next time.